The Jaws of Life by Pierce DeVille has been out for almost a full year now, so let's talk about it. Just gonna grab my Pierce DeVille hat, because that would be pretty fitting for a video like this one, right? So, welcome to the channel. I'm so happy that you're here today, and whether you love Pierce DeVille's latest album or hate it, I think that we can all agree that this album, The Jaws of Life, sounds different.
You went into this, it sounds different. It sounds different. It sounds different than old Pierce DeVille stuff.
It does. I mean,
tell us how it sounds different. Huh?
Tell me exactly how it sounds different.
Let's just go, because it feels different. I swear to God, Goosebumps feels different.
Well, I mean, everything about this record was different for us. Like, we went to New Orleans, worked with a new producer, Paul Meany.
So without a doubt, the guys in Pierce DeVille wanted to go for a different sound for this record, which is cool. Personally, I can't get mad at a band for trying to reach a new sound. Take, for example, Bring Me the Horizon, which I've been a huge fan of since Count Your Blessings, and they're a band that's pretty notorious for changing their sounds up drastically. Never would I have guessed that the guys that made Pray for Plagues would ever be collaborating with Ed Sheeran. But here we are, and I digress. Pierce DeVille has pretty much established themselves in the Warped Tour scene, or the post-hardcore alternative music scene, as a post-hardcore band. Like, you know, they got that sound like Chiodos, or like Dance Gavin Dance, or Sleeping with Sirens, just to name a few. But their latest record just doesn't fit that scene, and I wanted to find out why. Like, I get experimenting with their sound and trying to blend genres to create something new and not become stale over the years by writing the same album over and over and over again, but something about this album just hit differently. So it's no surprise that Mike Fuentes, Vic's brother, stepped down from the band back in 2017 for reasons that I don't want to talk about now, because that's not what this video is about. However, all that I will say is that 25% of the band is now gone. So at least a 25% difference was, in a way, to be expected. Like, if any of you guys are in a band or just jam out with your friends, you probably understand how much of a difference a single person makes. Like, when you're all just jamming, like, for example, if you guys have like a punk rock bassist and he or she has to leave, so your power metal guitarist picks up the bass instead, like, that makes a difference. Like, the vibes just change. Like, you know, it's just different. So I think that when this album was announced, at least for myself, I knew it would be a little different. But honestly, I didn't expect it to be this different. Like, I thought that it would still have the same vibes as Collide with the Sky and Misadventures. And yeah, I was a little disappointed when I first heard it, but I was like mostly surprised. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like hate the album. I've been listening to it like this whole week just to kind of get mentally prepared for this video, and like, you know, I'm vibing to it. But I mean, it's just different. That's the point of this video. It's different. Anyways, Past the Nirvana was the first single, and my initial reaction was just surprised, really. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I certainly did not have the song on repeat. And I was dying for new Pierce DeVille music at the time. I have been a longtime fan of the band myself, and I wouldn't say that I'm stuck on nostalgia and think like, oh, only their older music is the best music. Like I was just saying with Bring Me the Horizon, I like their newer stuff like better and better, and I think it's interesting to see any band progress into what they actually want to sound like. I think that's very cool. But anyways, I started digging into Pierce DeVille's songs, both new and old, and I think I found something interesting. So let me just pull up my screen so we can see this together. Okay, so I did look up Pierce DeVille's Past the Nirvana, that being the first single, and, you know, just on Google, song by Pierce DeVille, the lyrics come out. But what I thought that was interesting was the songwriter section, which I take it with a grain of salt, because I mean, I understand that when you're putting a record together, you know, a band works with the engineers and the producers, and you know, there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. I don't understand all of it, but I'd like to think that when Google mentions the songwriters, as you can see here, it's like I'd like to think that these are at least the primary songwriters, right? We're gonna look at a couple of examples to see what I'm talking about. So we're looking at Pierce the Veil's Past the Nirvana, and the songwriters are Curtis Peoples, David Dahlquist, Pat Morrissey, Paul Meany, and Vic Fuentes, which was a little shocking to hear, actually. Like, as I'm taking this as the primary songwriters, I'd still like to think that Jaime and Tony still had like their input into the songs. But I just thought that this was very interesting, so I started looking more and more into it. So let's just go up with the next song, Emergency Contact. I thought, okay, who are the songwriters for Emergency Contact? We have Curtis Peoples and Vic Fuentes. Like, I've been watching a couple of interviews, and I could be wrong, but while recording the album, I know that Tony Perry got married, like in the middle of recording the album, so he stepped out. I'm not sure how much he was really involved with writing the album. If he's got like his priorities, which like mad respect and congratulations to the guy. But I'm just, I'm looking into these songs and I'm just like, who wrote this stuff? Not that it's bad. Like, again, Emergency Contact is probably, in my opinion, one of the better songs on this album. I really like that one, and like I said, Death of an Executioner. But I'm just looking at the songwriters, and let's just go back to Past the Nirvana, because this group of people, Curtis, David, Pat, Paul, and Vic, like, when you think of Pierce the Veil, you think of these guys, Vic, Mike, Tony, and Jaime. Like, that's Pierce the Veil. We all love them. And when I think of Past the Nirvana, now I just think of Curtis, David, Pat, Vic, and Paul. And yeah, that's Pierce the Veil now. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's not Pierce the Veil, but you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the songwriters for this. I do want to compare their other songs. I'm just taking a look at the Jaws of Life songs first. So we saw Emergency Contact, Past the Nirvana. I did look up Flawless Execution as well. And again, for songwriters, we have Paul Meany and Vic Fuentes. Like, where are the other guys at, right? Death of an Executioner, like I said, that's one of my favorite ones from that album. And this one actually has, it was songwriters credited are Paul, Curtis, Jaime, Tony, Vic, and Colin. That's a lot of people credited for one song. That's amazing. I can't imagine what it's like to like get together with a bunch of people and just like, put something together. That's awesome. But anyways, this one has like, more input, I'm guessing, from the band. If we see this one actually has Jaime, Tony, and Vic. So pretty interesting, right? The next track that I wanted to look at, we got a couple of examples of the Jaws of Life. How about King for a Day? King for a Day is probably their most favorite song, so I'm going to scroll down slowly to build up anticipation. Who wrote King for a Day? The songwriter credit goes to Curtis Peoples, Cesar Soto, Vic Fuentes, Mike Fuentes, Kellen Quinn, Jaime, and Stephen Solomon. So that's another big group of collective minds getting together and working on this project, which was awesome. King for a Day, like, it's their most popular song for a reason. But anyways, this is another example that has like most of the band. The only one not credited is Tony, which is kind of weird. But like, King for a Day has like most of the band actually credited. So what's up with the newer stuff like Past the Nirvana? That one, as far as the band goes, it's just Vic there and a couple of other guys. Emergency Contact too. It's just Vic and one other guy. Like, what's happening here? You know. Anyways, King for a Day, most of the band. Paraphernalia, another awesome track. Songwriters Vic and Mike Fuentes, and that's the only credit we see. And again, I know that other people are involved with the songs. I just think it's really interesting, right? Like, how come Paraphernalia, you got Mike and Vic? Like, yeah, we wrote this song, but for the newer songs, it's this other group of people. Personally, I think that's what's so different about this album. I'm like theorizing that this album just sounds different because it was written by other people. I do want to keep going. I looked up Pierce the Veil, Besitos, because I like that song. And again, songwriters are David, Michael, and Vic. Who's David? I don't know. I should probably go back though and credit the other people. So for Past the Nirvana, I did look up who all these other people are. So Paul Meany, this is his Bing results. He is the American singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, music director, and record producer. So yeah, Paul Meany was the one that produced this record. So that's him. Curtis Peoples is a pop artist and singer-songwriter with a defined understanding of how to create dynamic yet radio-friendly music that fans of both rock and pop can enjoy equally. You know, I think that they probably really wanted to work with this guy because, I don't know, maybe it's just my opinion, but I feel like this album really went for a more radio-friendly sound. But if we continue, David Dahlquist, otherwise known as Kill Dave, is another American songwriter and record producer. So yeah, this is another guy credited for a couple of Pierce the Veil songs. Moving on, I could only find the Instagram account. I couldn't really find much on Pat Morrissey. But anyways, according to his Instagram, musician band, I'm sure he's another songwriter and record producer. Check him out here. I mean, if you guys like any of this Pierce the Veil's latest album, The Jaws of Life, I mean, check out all of these people. Check out Paul, Curtis, David, Pat. I've personally never heard of these guys, but you know, growing up, I was a big fan of Joey Sturgis. Am I saying that right? Sorry if I'm butchering the name. I guess I wasn't that big of a fan. But what I'm trying to say is, like, you know, the music production is just a job on its own too, which is very cool. So yeah, see, these are some of the extra people that worked on these tracks, which I think is so interesting. Let's just go back to looking up who wrote what songs. We did leave off with Besitos. Today I Saw the Whole World, song by Pierce the Veil. Scroll down to songwriters. We have Curtis and Vic. So they've worked a lot with Curtis. Again, I don't know who most of these people are, but they seem to have been there through and through with the band, which is cool. Dive In by Pierce the Veil. Songwriters Mike Fuentes. And it's only crediting Mike. That's kind of weird. I mean, again, I take it with a grain of salt what I'm finding on these results. Like, I know that other people were involved in this song. I mean, especially Dive In. Like, there's no way that only Mike wrote this song. I take it with a grain of salt, but bear with me for the next couple of examples. Let's just take it back right now for one of their first singles ever, Yeah Boy and Dollface. I bet you haven't heard that one in a long time. Yeah Boy and Dollface, song by Pierce the Veil. Songwriters Mike and Vic Fuentes. Not surprised. At the time, it was only them two, but this makes sense. At least as primary songwriters, this makes sense. So anyways, as I was looking at this songwriter credibility, I did want to look up other bands just to like establish how good are these resources, you know? I don't want to just be throwing stuff out there and calling it facts. I'm just thinking this is why it sounds different. The people involved in the latest album, it's just different. You know, you got Yeah Boy and Dollface, Mike and Vic. You got Besitos, Mike and Vic again, featuring this David guy. You got Cara Fernelia, Mike and Vic again. You got these new ones, Flawless Execution. It's Vic and Paul. Like, it's just different. Like, it's different. Again, not a bad thing. It's just like the band is just kind of different here. It's a much bigger project with much more hands-on involvement. So anyways, I'm going to open up another tab. So a band that I also enjoy listening to, and I hope you do too, is Dance Gavin Dance. And I'm just going to use them as an example. If we look here, Inspire the Liars by Dance Gavin Dance. If we look into the songwriters for who is credited, we have Tillian, a band member, John Mess, a band member, Will Swan, also a band member, Matthew Mingus, and Timothy Freerick. Sorry, I'm a bad reader. But anyways, it's kind of interesting that for another band, like, I'm still using Google. I might have been switching back and forth between Microsoft and Google, but it's the same source. And for Dance Gavin Dance, it just credits the whole band. It doesn't credit anyone else, and I find that a little weird. Well, not weird, but like this is what I believe is the difference between old Pierce the Veil songs and their newer album. Like, to me, I see this as the difference. I'm gonna continue with We Own the Night by Dance Gavin Dance. Again, songwriters are credited Tillian, Will, John, Matt, and Tim. All band members. One of their newer songs, Feels Bad Man, Dance Gavin Dance. Songwriters, we can see here again, Tillian, Will, John, Matt, and Tim. All members of the band. And I'm just going to show off a couple more examples. Maybe at this point you guys already get the point of the video and want to click out. But, one of my favorite bands, I did a video on them before. If you guys want to scroll down through my channel and find that video somewhere, Tilting the Hourglass by Alisana. This was written by Dennis Lava Lee. Is that Dennis Lee's middle name? It's kind of weird because Dennis Lee is written here twice. Anyways, that's the screamer for Alisana. Patrick Thompson. What? Okay, this is a weird one. The songwriters are Dennis Lee, Patrick Thompson, and Sean Milkey. All members of the band. It's like we can trust them, right? Because we know these guys. What else did I look up? A Prophecy by Asking Alexandria. Whew, that's an old one. Anyways, songwriters are Danny Robert Warsnop. I did not know that Robert was Danny's middle name. That's kind of weird. But anyways, songwriters are Danny, James, and Benjamin Paul Bruce, who just recently announced that he left Asking Alexandria. Just throwing that in there in case you guys hadn't heard of that. The founding member of Asking Alexandria has stepped away from the band to focus on his family. He's dealing with a bunch of things, but good on him for taking care of his family. Another song that just came up today as I was talking to my wife was Riptide by Beartooth. I love that song. And if we just scroll down this internet page. So Beartooth, Riptide. Let's see who's credited for this one, right? If you guys are Beartooth fans, you know that Caleb Shomo is just the man here, like one-man show. So I'm curious, right? What kind of results will we get here? What happened to my screen? Sorry about that. technical difficulties. Anyways, songwriters for Riptide is Caleb Shomo, the one and only. So, I mean, with these couple of examples, I'm definitely not throwing shade. That's not my intent. I was just curious. I was just on the internet and I thought, why is the Jaws of Life so different? And to me, this is kind of telling. To me, it looks like the Jaws of Life was just a little bit more hands-on with producers and maybe audio engineers, and it was just, I think that for this one, Pierce the Veil definitely reached out like for help writing this album, which is cool. Like, that's not anything to be ashamed of either. That's how you grow. That's how you progress. And they obviously wanted to do something different, and they weren't afraid to take that leap. And we got the Jaws of Life. So let me know in the comments if you guys like the album. What do you think? Was it too different for you? Was it not what you were expecting and you're just not vibing with it? Or was it like totally what you were missing and something that you wanted to hear? I've seen lots of reviews on Reddit and the YouTube comments and TikTok and all that stuff. So there does seem to be a pretty big divide on this album. Like, I think a lot of the older fans probably just like to stick with the older stuff. And maybe some of the newer fans are cool with this, but I don't know. Overall, again, my personal opinion, I think that it's a good album, but it's not that I don't want to talk shit. Like, it's a good album. It's not my favorite album, but it's a good album. The guys in Pierce the Veil are definitely talented, and they can write songs around me. They can, it's better than anything I can ever do. I have a guitar. I like to play, but I'm not good. So, yeah, Pierce the Veil. You guys made a pretty good album. I'm still excited to see what comes next, basically. Definitely going back and listening to the album. For me, it's been a while, but again, getting prepared for this video, I did go back and I did re-listen to the album. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it kind of takes a while for songs to grow on me. I just talked about Beartooth and Riptide. Like, when that song came out, I hated it. like I heard it and I was like, what is this? Like, I was a huge Attack fan, and I'm not the biggest Beartooth fan. And when Riptide came out, I was just like not into it. But I always put music on shuffle. Somehow it came up on a random playlist, and lo and behold, I vibe with it now. I like the song. Same thing with the Jaws of Life. I was not vibing with it, and I was just like putting it on the back burner. But getting ready for this video, listening to it again, it's pretty good. So anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for taking your time to hang out with me and talking about Pierce the Veil. Let me know in the comments what you think about the album, and I'll be back to talk about another band in some other video at some other time. Have a great rest of your days, evenings, mornings, nights, whatever it may be for you. Bye.